They erased this knowledge because it bypasses every spiritual middleman. Imagine for a moment that perception is a language made of frequency, that what you call seeing and knowing can be tuned like an instrument. The claim I want to place on the table is simple and urgent. Modern sound technology, binaural beats, offers an experimental shortcut to a state many traditions call the third eye. It is not a miracle handed down intact, and it is not a promise. It is a tool you can test in your own nervous system tonight. I'll be blunt. This is not about believing, it's about verifying. We'll move quickly through what binaural beats are, why they might matter for inner perception, and how an ancient symbolic map, the 3 marks described in certain Gnostic writings and later interpreted by mystics, can be repurposed as a practical guide to where you place attention while listening. Then I will walk you through a short, careful experiment you can do with headphones, what you might feel, and how to handle the inner voices that try to discredit the experience. If this message is landing with you, try the short verification we'll do, and if you felt anything even faint, drop the word recognition in the comments. 1 word. That's enough to register your experience and join a field of others testing the same map. First, the simple science primer. Binaural beats are an auditory phenomenon produced when each ear hears a slightly different tone. Your brain does something elegant and basic. It perceives the difference between those tones as a rhythmic pulse, a beat, and can entrain, that is, shift its dominant electrical rhythms, toward that beat. We speak of brainwave bands as shorthand for states. Delta is the realm of deep sleep and bodily repair. Theta sits just above deep sleep, a place of inward imagery, dreams, and intuitive associations. Alpha is calm wakefulness, that relaxed alertness when your mind softens. Beta is everyday focused thinking. Gamma is faster, associated in reports with moments of insight, integration, and very high-level processing. Many practitioners use binaural beats to nudge the brain into theta for openness, then briefly into gamma for integration of insight. Evidence suggests the brain can be nudged in this way. Reports vary widely across individuals. This is an experimental tool, not a guarantee. Now, the symbolic bridge. In fragments recovered from collections like Nag Hammadi, texts often described as Gnostic or attributed in certain traditions to figures like Jesus as a revealer of inner ways, there appears a motif of 3 marks. Take them not as literal tattoos but as a map, 3 nodal points where attention, frequency, and embodiment intersect. Reimagined for our purpose, these correspond to 3 areas you can physically check and then hold while allowing sound to work. The base of the skull as the anchor, the lateral side of the hand as the sensor for perception, and the center of the chest as the resonator of voice and inner signature. Think of these 3 as functions. The base of the skull grounds and connects the brainstem and subtle regulation of attention. The lateral hand is a somatic meter. Tiny sensations there reflect shifts in peripheral nervous tuning. The chest center is a chamber of resonance, the meeting point between breath, emotion, and expression. Old texts framed these as marks of origin, vision, and command. In our terms, they are anchor, sensor, and integrator. We will use them as places to direct gentle attention while the binaural beats do their work. This repurposes a once symbolic map into a practical attentional protocol. Before we get hands-on, a few safety notes. Use good headphones and a comfortable seat or a safe recline. Do not do this while driving or operating machinery. Keep volume at a level that is comfortable, loud enough to feel present, not so loud that it pushes into discomfort. If you have a history of photosensitivity or seizures, check with a clinician before experimenting with brainwave entrainment. Likewise, if you are in active psychiatric crisis, prioritize professional support. These cautions are about safety, not discouragement. The experiment is short and gentle by design. Now prepare. Find a quiet space, sit or lie down, put on headphones, and give yourself 10 minutes. If you can, schedule this for a time when you won't be interrupted. The protocol we'll use is simple. We will do a 3-point body verification, then a short listening session that leans into theta for opening and offers a brief gamma nudge for integration. Remember, you are testing. Record in brief notes anything you notice afterward. Your own data matters more than anyone else's claim. Begin with the first point, the anchor at the base of the skull. Place both hands lightly behind your head, thumbs resting near the skull's base where the neck meets the skull. Press only if it feels comfortable. You can simply rest your palms there. Close your eyes. Sense the contact. For 30 seconds, breathe naturally and let attention settle into this place. Notice the texture of the muscles, any warmth, the rhythm of your breath moving at the back of your throat. Some people report a subtle shift here, a softening, a release, the sense of a hinge opening. Others feel nothing at all. Both are valid. Do not attempt to force anything. Your role is to observe and record. Move to the second point, the lateral side of your dominant hand. Rest your hand palm up. With the fingertips of the opposite hand, trace a line from the base of the little finger down toward the wrist along the outer edge. Do this slowly, even microscopically. You are scanning for a texture or a subtle ridge, a tingling, a sensitivity, or even a faint temperature change. Hold gentle pressure at any spot that seems different and notice whether the sensation speaks, perhaps a slight prickling or a soft ripple. Some traditions interpret these as traces, signatures of perception. Again, do not invent, simply attend. If the sensation disappears, note that too. It is not a failure, it is data. Third point, center of chest. Place your fingertips lightly on the sternum, above the heart but at the center line. Breathe into your hands. Notice resonance, warmth, pressure, an inner tone, or a quiet stillness. Some people hear nothing but feel a hum. Some find emotion surfaces. This is the resonator. Allow whatever arises to be present without judgment. Before the sound begins, prepare for resistance. Very often, as you lower into attention, a voice arises. You're imagining it. This is nonsense. You're being fooled. These are not signs you lack ability. They are symptoms that the system is responding. Think of them as background noise, the modern version of what Gnostic writers once called the archontes, patterns of interference that keep attention fragmented. Interpret them simply as cognitive skepticism, an expected reflex. Your instruction is to notice the voice, name it mentally if you like, thought of doubt, and return to the sensory anchor. Do not wrestle with it. That strengthens it. Observe and reorient. When you are ready, put on your headphones and press play on the recommended track. If you do not have a prepared binaural track, set 2 steady tones of different frequency in each ear so that their difference sits in the theta range, roughly 4 to 7 Hz. For example, a 200 Hz tone in one ear and a 204 Hz tone in the other will produce a 4 Hz binaural beat. A simple way to proceed is to sit with theta entrainment for 8 to 10 minutes, then add a short burst where the beat moves into the lower gamma range for 30 to 60 seconds, a difference in the 30 to 40 Hz region, as a gentle nudge toward integration. I emphasize, these band suggestions reflect common practice among sound workers. Individuals vary, and higher difference beats can feel intense for some. Keep the gamma burst brief, and only if you feel stable. As the sound begins, return to your anchor at the base of the skull. Breathe slowly. Inhale to a count that feels natural. Exhale fully. With each exhale, imagine attention dropping into the base of the skull anchor. With each inhale, allow the chest resonator to expand and soften. After a few breaths, move awareness to the lateral hand and scan again. Is there a new tingling? A subtle warmth? Allow your attention to be both local and wide. Notice the point where hands touch skull, the outer line of the hand, the chest center. Do not force imagery or visions. Let sensory impressions come and go. Expect ordinary sensations. warmth behind the eyes, a vague pressure between the brows, a soft pulsing in the mastoid area, a change in breath tempo, or a momentary widening of your inner field. Some people perceive color shifts, brief imagery, or a sense of presence. Others report nothing at all. All of these responses fit within normal range. If you feel lightheaded, reduce volume, sit up, and breathe deeply. If any discomfort arises, stop the session. No result, positive or negative, is a verdict on your worth. You will also encounter an internal saboteur that is more persistent than a passing thought, a stream of commentary that interprets, mocks, or derides. It may try to pull you into argument. Name it. You can say silently, "Not now," and then return to the body check. Over time, the voice tends to lose momentum when it's not fed by engagement. The first sessions are often the hardest because the mind is trying to reassert familiar narratives. This is part of the experiment and an important datum. If your mind rails against opening, that reaction itself tells you something about the system you are probing. After the theta portion has run its course, 8 to 10 minutes, if you feel steady and present, allow the recording to shift for a short gamma nudge. Think of this as a brief invitation to integrate what loosened during the inward opening phase. A flash that may sharpen imagination into insight. Do not expect dramatic fireworks. A gamma push may feel like clarity, a momentary crispness in thought, an alignment of attention. It can also feel like nothing at all. Either is acceptable. When the audio ends, sit quietly for a minute, keep your eyes closed, and sense the 3 points again: skull, hand, chest. Note any differences. Open your eyes slowly. Write down the first 3 words that capture your experience. Be as specific as possible. Warmth behind eyes, twinge in hand, lightheaded, quiet. Over the next 24 hours, check how persistent these impressions were. Did your attention linger differently? Did dreams shift? Did small insights surface during ordinary tasks? These are the measures that, over time, make a case either for continuing the practice or abandoning it as not useful to you. A few words on interpretation. In the old symbolic frame, the demiurge and the archontes were metaphors for forces that obscure self-knowledge, institutions, patterns, and internalized narratives that insist you cannot know directly. In our work, treat them as metaphors for noise, habitual thought patterns, stress responses, cultural skepticism. When sensations arise, take them as feedback from your sensorium, not as proof of cosmic authority. The point is not to prove someone else right, but to give yourself a protocol to explore attention and to collect personal data. People often want a routine after a single experiment. A simple, safe protocol many find useful. 3 to 5 minutes of the body check and a 10-minute theta session daily for a week. Journaling immediately afterward. Note the intensity, quality, and persistence of sensations. After a week, if you feel curious, try lengthening sessions or experimenting with slightly different beat frequencies within the theta band. Keep gamma pushes short and infrequent at first. Avoid marathon sessions. Habituation dilutes sensitivity. Short, consistent practice tends to be more informative. Expect variability. Several factors modulate outcomes: sleep, hydration, caffeine, stress levels, and even the time of day. Many practitioners report richer receptivity in the evening when the nervous system naturally shifts toward inward states, or in the early morning before stimulation accumulates. Try different times and track the differences. Note also that expectations influence perception. If you show up desperate for a mystical experience, the mind may manufacture dramatic but ephemeral phenomena. If you show up curious and neutral, small changes are often clearer and more reliable. Keep the attitude of a scientist in your own lab. Record, repeat, and test conditions. I want to address a common trap: absolute belief in a single method. The third eye, in spiritual language, points to an expanded capacity for attentional insight. But there are many roads to that capacity. breathwork, contemplative practice, sensory deprivation, and meaningful life experience. Binaural beats are an experimental tool in a wider toolkit. They can shorten the path to an inward window for some people. For others, they are negligible. Use them as an adjunct, not as a replacement for embodied practices that sustain everyday life. You will encounter testimonial claims online, stirring stories of revelation, immediate insight, even miraculous transformations. Treat these as anecdote, not proof. Likewise, you will confront critics who dismiss sound work as placebo. Both perspectives contain truth. What matters is your empirical approach. Try the protocol, observe, document, and adjust. There are practical adjustments that increase safety and clarity. Keep session volume steady and comfortable. Sudden increases can jolt the system. Use stereo headphones that fit well. Poor stereo imaging reduces effectiveness. If you create your own tones, prefer sine waves for their smoothness. If you use pre-made tracks from creators, look for those that clearly label frequency differences and durations. Avoid tracks that layer heavy beats, binaural dissonance, or abrupt musical changes that draw attention outward. The purpose is to create a subtle, steady field where internal shifts can be noticed. Now, a word about the rhetoric of activation. That term can be seductive. It promises sudden unlocking and power. Instead, consider activation as a gradual tuning, an increase in sensitivity to subtle signals, and a refinement of attention. For most, the first clear benefit is not vision in the cinematic sense, but a sense of coherence. Your inner life feels better aligned with attention. Thought feels less jagged. Small intuitive inklings are easier to distinguish from fear-based imaginings. These are the practical signs of progress. If you wish to make the practice social and cumulative, there are ways to keep it responsible. Share brief reports in comments or in a small group. One-line descriptors, a timestamp, and context. Morning, evening, rested, or tired. That creates a communal data set without forcing anyone into dogma. If many people report similar experiences under similar conditions, patterns begin to emerge. If experiences are wildly divergent, that helps too. It tells us about the highly individual nature of neurophenomenological work. Let me offer an example from my own practice, not to prove a claim, but to normalize what can occur. On one occasion, after a week of short theta sessions, a quiet image surfaced during a gamma nudge. The sense of a narrow corridor opening into a wide plane, accompanied by a single word-like impression. Remember, it was not dramatic in the cinematic sense. It was more like the retrieval of a forgotten habit of attention. Over subsequent days, I noticed a small shift. I could hold focus on complex tasks with a bit more ease. That, to me, is the real currency of this work. A subtle recalibration of attention that shows up in ordinary life. Your mileage will vary. We also need to speak plainly about the psychological effects some people experience. Opening attention to inner states can unearth memories, unresolved feelings, and emotions. This is not uncommon and does not mean the practice is bad, but it does require responsibility. If intense material surfaces, pause the experiment and seek appropriate support from a therapist or a trusted practitioner. The goal is enlargement of perception, not destabilization. Use the method with care. What about frequency labels and the nervous system? Remember, they are operational categories, useful maps, not literal truths. Delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma are names for ranges of neural oscillatory activity. Binaural beats aim to provide a rhythmic scaffold that can encourage the brain to favor one range over another. Evidence suggests entrainment can occur, but the strength and persistence of that entrainment depend on many factors: the individual's neural plasticity, current state of arousal, and the context of practice. Approach the labels as useful heuristics: theta for inward opening, alpha for relaxed presence, gamma for brief integrative flashes. If you continue, some logistical suggestions will help refine the practice. Keep a simple log: date, time of day, session duration, frequency band used, and 3-word summary of the experience. After 2 weeks, look for trends. If sensations ratchet down over time, consider shortening sessions. Habituation is real. If you find benefits, you might experiment with layering complementary practices. A 5-minute breath centering before sound, gentle movement afterward to ground, or journaling to translate ephemeral impressions into actionable insight. A final practical note about the 3 marks map. Over time, you will find which of the 3 points speaks more readily to you. For some, the lateral hand is exquisitely sensitive and acts as the first indicator of inner change. For others, the chest center is the resonant key. Use them as diagnostic sensors, not as definitive markers. Their value lies in giving you places to focus and compare across sessions. We began with an image, perception as language, frequency as grammar. The old Gnostic framing warned against delegating knowing to external authorities. It taught the importance of direct, personal verification. That spirit is our guiding ethic here. Binaural beats are a pragmatic, contemporary means of creating a field in which direct verification becomes possible for many people. They do not guarantee transcendence or magical powers. They offer an experimental accelerator for attention, a lever you can use to test hypotheses about your inner life. You may walk away unchanged. You may feel small but unmistakable shifts. Or you may experience a chain of events that leads you into deeper practices. All outcomes are part of the same truth. The only valid authority in this work is your own carefully observed experience. If you tried the experiment and noticed anything at all, remember, 1 word in the comments, recognition, is all I ask. It's a small signal that others are also coming awake to an experimental approach. One last charge. Treat this as an initiation into a practice, not a single event. Short, consistent experiments build reliable data. Sporadic, high-expectation attempts usually disappoint. Use the 3-point body check before each session, journal briefly, and honor the rhythms of your life. Share lightly and learn from patterns rather than anecdotes. And when inner resistance shows up, that old, loud voice, meet it with the same curiosity you would bring to a surprising physical sensation. Name it, note it, and let it pass. If you want to go deeper, subscribe and join the next installment where I will provide curated tracks, step-up protocols, and a guided set of variations you can follow over a month to chart your own inner map. We'll explore how to scale the practice safely, how to combine breath and somatic cues, and how to interpret the patterns that emerge across repeated sessions. No promises of sudden powers, only carefully structured experiments that help you know your own system more clearly. Tonight, if you are curious, try the 3-point check and a 10-minute theta session with a short gamma nudge. Record the first 3 words you write after you open your eyes, and if anything shifted, leave recognition below. This is not the end of a reveal. It is the beginning of a practice of noticing. Your body remembers more than your labels. Use sound as a way to listen to that memory.